We know now that more men are dying of prostate cancer than have done in the past. And if that curve continues, it means that prostate cancer will be the leading cause of cancer diagnosed in Britain. If you're a man in Britain today, you have a 1 in 8 chance of getting it. If you're black in Britain today, you have a 1 in 4 chance of getting it. So it seems to a certain extent that it is gaining in power. On the other hand, people who do get prostate cancer have a much better chance of living a longer time with it than they did, say, a generation ago. And the treatments are always coming on. There's always something new in the pipeline. So it's not an entirely negative outlook.
But why are more men dying of prostate cancer? Because we know more about it now. So surely the awareness is there. You would think that more would be going to the doctor.
Well, late diagnosis is the real problem, because for a lot of men, by the time, and this is what happened to me, by the time you realise there's a problem, it has spread from the prostate and advanced, in my case, to the bones fairly significantly. Now, the reason is that men are reluctant to go to the doctor, particularly in the case of prostate, because there are 2 tests that you can get. One is the Psa test, which is a simple blood test, which is okay but not foolproof by any means. Mm-hmm. And the other is a physical exam by the doctor. And a lot of men won't go for that because it means the doctor putting their finger in a rather private place.
Exactly.
Men just don't want to know. So they think, I'll just leave it. It'll probably be something else. And by the time they found out, the disease has spread.
And it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had symptoms. What were your symptoms? You had a bad back, didn't you? And aching bones. It's going to the toilet more.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you thought that you were ignoring, which in retrospect, looking back, should have told you, hang on, you need to get something checked here?
For me, it was recurrent aches and pains. But from having carried equipment for more than 30 years, I had bad backs occasionally anyway. But this was something that kept on coming back, and I'd deal with it and it kept on coming back for the best part of a year. And only then, actually, did I have problems urinating. And it should really have been, I suppose, the other way around. I got checked when I was 40. I got checked when I was 50. And I thought, I'm free and clear now.
And it's not in your family either, is it?
No, none at all. So I thought it was a huge surprise to me to discover that I had prostate cancer, because there are no indicators. And that's what makes it so deadly, because it creeps up on you. It can be symptomless until it's too late.
So the symptoms are aches and pains, urinating more frequently. Is there anything that they sound quite sort of nebulous, really? I mean, they're the kind of symptoms that you would associate perhaps with old age, or I don't know, sitting in the wrong position for a while, or not necessarily, ding, it's cancer.
That's the difficulty. You can confuse it with other things. So it is having to pee more often, having difficulty peeing, something being wrong with your flow. That's a fairly good marker. By the time you get aches and pains, to be honest, you really got to do something drastic, because it means that the disease has escaped from the prostate gland and has moved on. But it is a very fine thing to judge, and unless you get actually checked, you really can't tell for sure.
So what do you think men should do?
Well, it's all about self-awareness, really. And if something goes wrong with your body, the way you feel, but also the way your physical functions are working, if there's something not right, then you need to stay on top of it and go and see your doctor. But in the wider field, what we really need is a proper screening program that works. And we're on our way there, but we don't have it. So the Psa test, a marker but not entirely reliable. The physical examination is, again, not very inviting. There's a certain type of MRI scan you can get that focuses on the prostate, but we need something that's going to work for everybody, and something that works correctly, if you like.
You know what's interesting, though, is that, of course, there's a screening program for breast cancer. That's not particularly comfortable. There's a screening program, effectively, for cervical cancer. That's certainly not comfortable. Is there a way, perhaps, of reframing it for men, where you say, listen, we know this isn't particularly nice, but it really could save you in the long run? I wonder whether it's a sort of cultural thing in our society, that it's been okay for breast, for cervical. We have bowel cancer screening as well, but not for prostate.
Well, I think it's also because men will think, well, part of it is if I don't want to know. If I have it, I don't want to know. Just sort of put the truth away, which actually helps nobody at all. And it if you get a certain momentum going to it, if it becomes as common as people going for a flu jab, then men would go and get it. But the first thing they've really got to do is get a screening test that works and works for everybody.
And if we don't get a national screening programme, then what?
Well, then we're stuck in the same situation that we are now, that a lot of men who might have the disease aren't getting themselves tested and will get worse as a result, and that will cost us all in terms of NHS resources and treatments that are needed, and particularly, of course, for the men themselves.
You see, for women, if it's breast cancer, that's very present in a lot of our lives, and the reason I was diagnosed with it is because I went and got checked. That doesn't exist in prostate cancer and in men, does it? That simple awareness, it's not being talked about as much, and therefore perhaps men aren't thinking of it as much.
Possibly, yeah. I think things were helped a lot when Stephen Fry, for instance, announced that he had been diagnosed and had his prostate removed, and then me shortly afterwards. And as a result of that, there was a huge spike in referrals from men going and getting themselves checked. And in fact, NHS England then allotted £10 million to deal with that spike. But really, what we need, I suppose, is a longer continuing spike. Now, you mentioned the breast cancer charities and those midnight walks and the pink T-shirts and that sort of thing. Well, Prostate Cancer UK, the organisation for which I'm an ambassador, they are doing great things. They have the March for Men and they have different events. So it's getting there. In the football community, particularly, funnily enough, and I go to games, Wycombe Wanderers playing, and men come up to me and say, actually, I got tested because of what you and Stephen Fry said, which is...
That's great, Dave.
Terrific. We need that to happen much more.
How are you?
I'm all right, actually. I'm coming to the end of a second load of treatment. So I had chemo, which worked to a certain extent, and then I've been on something called radium-223 for the past 6 months, which has brought my PSA right back down. Some days you'd have to tell me that I had cancer for me to be aware of it, although I sort of never stop thinking about it. You wake up in the morning and it's there. But physically at the moment, I'm okay, and we are just sort of keeping things at bay. It's always, the psychology is hugely important, and you can be on top of the disease, or the disease can be on top of you, and you have to be on top of the disease, and that's a better place to be.
We've known each other for nearly 30 years. You have always been quite stoic and resilient and very positive. And I guess it's about that mindset, isn't it? If the cancer is always present, which you say it is.
Well, and you and I both become members of the Cancer Club.
Yeah. It's not a great club to be in,
it's a terrible club. Yeah, the fees are really exorbitant. But it's something you have to learn to live with. And it's a journey. And it is. I've learned a huge amount about how to live life, and about science, and about cancer, and about the treatments that I'm getting at the Royal Marsden, which are wonderful. But also about, in my head, about how to look at life and death, and understand it. Up to that point, largely I'd probably taken life for granted, like most people do. You just get on with it and enjoy the good bits and get through the bad bits. But then, when you have an incurable disease, then that changes a great deal. And you have to think quite hard about where you're going and where the end of that journey is going to be. And in some ways, actually, it's really quite rewarding. You've said that to me in the past. It does bring you valuable things. I wasn't going to say good things. It brings you valuable things sometimes. It makes you treasure a lot of life. And I see beauty in life which I never saw before.
And insights.
Yes.
And understanding how important relationships are.
Yes, all that.
And if we continue, one of us is going to start crying.
Not me. Not today.
You're going.
I took the tablets.
Did you? Well, it's good to see you. Really good to see you. And
pleasure.
that you're so positive and really trying to raise awareness, get more people to the doctors if they think there is something wrong.
I mean, the positivity thing, it doesn't always work. And I'm on a hormone treatment which gives me sort of hot flushes, male menopause. It's a good party. But there are most times okay. But I have black days. I have bad days, and there's no point pretending that they don't happen. But then they pass, and it's all right again. So long as there are more good days than bad days, it's all right.
What do you do in the black days?
Well, now we can start talking about crying again. I feel very emotional, and I feel it just sort of gets on top of me, and but I realise it's just a matter of time. And Ceci, my wife, supports me in a wonderful way, and she says, "Well, it'll be okay. We'll just get through it." And I, do my weeping, and then the next day it's okay.
And your coping strategies, you've got coping strategies to get through it when things feel a bit rough. Yeah.
But I know, because it's sort of chemically induced, I don't have to worry about it because I know it's like having a headache. Yeah. I can't get rid of it right now, but I know that it will be gone.
It'll pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Bill, thank you.
Thank you.
It's lovely to see you.
My pleasure.